These guys you see right here, this is my team. Regardless of what company I work for, I have so much trust and loyalty with these guys. And that's what I'm hoping to help you guys build in MentorMesh. At the end of the day, businesses are always going to do what's best for them. And that's totally understandable. I don't hate them for that. I want to help you guys build your team. So the first one, if we were to start our own company, how do we find clients? Door-to-door method? For me, honestly, I used to post on Craigslist. I don't even know if people still post on Craigslist, but I know that there's websites like Fiverr.com and Elance and Upwork or something like that. You would think that nobody or only small jobs come from those places, but that's not necessarily true at all. At the time, people in my industry were paying like $200 an hour. And so I would just charge like $50 an hour. So I got a certain class of customer, but there was actually quite a bit.
I went after ones where they could pay me very little, which Jay was happy to do. And then I could, you can go in with those expectations. Like, I'm not going to make a living doing this, but this is going to be my start. Of
course, I was the guy building everything, so I did it really mainly.
These guys are my team. I mean, I might have a couple openings. What is happening?
Thinking back, there was actually value higher than the dollars that we made. Basically, the experience of one, learning entrepreneurship, and how to negotiate, and two, we were actually creating products that helped run businesses.
Let's pick another question. What kinds of experience skills do you get during your entrepreneurial that made you get opportunities in tech companies? I'm asking because I do have my sewing business. I want to know what you learned being an entrepreneur. You're a problem solver. So part of your job is to identify the problem and come up with a systematic way to approach and solve that problem. Be inquisitive. So much of business and even technology is about relationships. Go talk to people, go ask the questions, go build the relationships, and it'll help you solve those problems. This is market research. That's everything, because having that mindset is super critical to standing out, because not enough people think like that.
No one's going to come out and just kind of say, oh, hey, do you want to take on this huge, $1 million problem and solve it for us and make a name for yourself? But you can grab those yourself, because there's a lot of things that nobody's working on that you can take care of.
So we have another question. Are there basics every coder should have on their resume?
I would say I'm mildly technical, but I do tell everybody to learn cloud computing. That's what matters now, especially in technology, is that you have to move and scale your business quickly. And the cloud is how you do that. It's also the technologies that are enabling things like AI and machine learning. You got to think about maximum employability. If everybody chooses data science because it's sexy, you're all competing for those 10 jobs.
I can say out of what I've seen, a lot of people want to sell themselves on how many technologies they know versus focusing on one. I probably wouldn't hire them. And I'll tell you why. It's kind of like one thing to try to be a jack of all trades. If you know it all, you're not going to be specializing in at least something. For instance, if you say you're a C# expert / PHP expert / and the years of experience you have, they kind of clash. It's hard to almost believe that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I don't know who started this trend, but if you put full stack developer on your heading, I know you're junior. Every junior developer does that.
About half of the resumes that I received did say full stack. And when you say full stack, you have to be full stack because you will be tested on it.
A lot of times, the ones that I see that have been more successful to get in more interviews, to get that chance to sit in front of Chanrith and explain your coding skills, talk about the projects they've worked on, the business outcomes, try to be compelling about your experience on what you've delivered and outcomes.
I was drawn more towards people who have had experiences with failures and were able to walk me through those failures. We think that we have to be 4.0 students in computer science to even talk to a coding interview, but it's not true.
What job titles are out there that we should look for? I'm not sure if I want to be front end or back end, so I'm not sure what positions I should apply for. My 2 cents to that would be, remember, you don't have to be a developer. I think it's good for everybody to have a foundation in technology, but there are other roles. I would definitely encourage data roles. So a business intelligence developer, a data analyst, a data engineer. Really, it's about learning the data tools and querying.
Working with data is definitely prevalent in the area of technology.
How do you deal with imposter syndrome when getting started? We all fail. I've botched Amazon interviews. I went to a Facebook interview and it wasn't even an interview. Like he talked to me and he was like, uh-huh. And then I never heard from him again. And so you just have to keep trying and you got to keep going. And if you do that, your persistence and your hard work, it will pay off. But if you quit, then you're definitely going to fail. A lot of people that, especially like I've heard many stories of people that got into Google, they had to interview 3-4 times. What do you guys think about imposter syndrome? Or do you never have that?
I think part of it is realizing that everybody has it. I remember sitting in some meetings and just being like, oh man, these guys are all going to figure out I have no idea what they're talking about. Everybody at some level is just kind of nodding and pretending like nobody knows the full picture. Use your skill set. That's what I learned is use the things that I'm good at. I guarantee you can be successful on the project, on the role. There's an angle you can use with the skill set you already have. You should be uncomfortable most of the time, I feel. As long as you don't panic, as long as you keep grinding forward, you can still be very, very successful.
Yeah, even for me, speaking from a software engineer perspective, my first job, I was 19. I was hired on just because my resume had the keywords JavaScript in there, and the company that I worked for thought that meant Java. So I got hired on, and everybody in the company thinking I'm some Java specialist, which wasn't true. My issue with imposter syndrome was that I was an imposter, kind of, but I got out of that by actually learning.
Not your fault, though. That was their bad.
Yeah. And it's all right to fake it, right? Sometimes you just got to fake it till you make it. And some of the things like, all right, and then you go back, you research what it is that you don't know. I tell you what, I have not met an engineer that I've worked with yet that doesn't Google a piece of code, like go and be like, oh, look at somebody else's work to solve a problem. It's how the industry works.
So one other thing I think is important to note. So there's this book called Strength Finder. And you could take this course or basic, no, it was a survey, and you take it and then it would kind of tell you what your strengths are. And it was interesting because the whole premise behind this book was focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. If we're already good at something, we can get to much higher levels if we focus on getting better at the things we're already good at. So even knowing what you naturally gravitate to and picking careers that need that, super helpful. Go be better at what you're already good at. And you'll stand out, And I thought that was a great piece of advice, because a lot of times you're given the opposite advice. No, you got to get better. Like introverts need to be more extroverted. No, you don't. You don't need to practice your public speaking. Just don't get a job that requires public speaking. Does it hurt to apply for jobs even after being rejected for a job within the same company?
If they see you're applying for a janitor job one day and a senior engineer job the other day, it's probably not a great look. But I mean, different teams have different needs, right? So just because one of the teams didn't hire you, I don't think it's a bad look for you to apply for a different team.
Yeah, I think some companies will want you to wait 6 months or a year. I know the big tech companies will do that sometimes. I turned down an offer from Amazon when new recruiters will tag me now and they'll offer me a role or they want me to apply for something. A couple of times they've said, "Hey, we saw you turn down a role 3 years ago. What about this one? Would you like it?" So they do keep records. So I think it probably depends on the role. Like you wouldn't want to continue to apply at the same type of team. But like if it's a company like Microsoft, I mean, that company's huge, right? Don't just take a hammer to every job and just, try to get better, try to improve and figure out where that is. And sometimes you can be great and qualified and it was just bad timing.
Yeah, I know with the state and federal jobs, right? They actually have a rule. If they're going to hire 2 people, they have to interview, what is it, like 8 or something? I mean, it's something they have to interview 4 people if they're going to hire 1. So a lot of times you get in these things and they have somebody in mind that they just need to interview people. So even if that particular role is not a great one for you, I don't think it's ever bad experience to be in front of the people that make decisions on hiring for a company.
You get to learn people's different interview styles and just gain different perspectives and build on it.
Okay. All right, guys. We're going to take note of some of these questions and answer them on MentorMesh. So if you're not a part of the community, please join.